Believe in LA Football Podcast.
Touchdown Rams! Touchdown UCLA! Recovered by the Chargers. The Trojans back in front.
With your hosts, the Coach and the Don, part of the Believe Podcast Network, LA's #1 sports podcast network.
What is up, Diatribe, and welcome back to the Believe in LA Football Podcast. We're your hosts, the Coach and the Don. As mentioned, the show is brought to you by the Believe Podcast Sports Network. It is Los Angeles' #1 sports podcast network, the only place with the show for every team in LA and more. We believe in our LA teams. Do you believe? Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing excellent. Super excited for this show. As always, got to mention sportseldente.com. It's going to be perfectly in line for what we do here. We cover LA football on the Coach and the Don here, and Sports El Dente covers all of the great Los Angeles sports teams overall. So aside from football, you get little baseball, hockey, all the other great sports, fantasy football, all that. So go check out sportseldente.com. Use the promo code The Coach and the Don. Get you 10% off there of any of those subscription packages. But as I mentioned, we have a great show today. We are going to be recapping a little bit of USC's Pro Day. We're going to then get into way too early predictions for the USC and UCLA 2019 season. And then in honor of March Madness, I'm sure everyone out there is loving or hating what's going on. I don't know if your bracket's busted. Talon's here still alive.
It's decent. It's not completely busted, but I'm going to need some help.
Yeah, mine's hanging on by a thread. I have 3 Final Four teams left, but that's about all I'm hanging on. And 2 of those 3 are probably half the country has them. So, but in honor of March Madness, we are going to actually do a fun segment. We're going to break it up into 3 shows, but we're going to take the best LA football teams and pit them against each other for a winner. We're going to do it, though, break it down college, high school, and pros. And maybe we'll do a 4th one, and we'll take the winners of, or the top of those even, and pit them against each other. So we'll see. We'll get to that when we get there. But for now, we're going to start with college in honor of March Madness. But first, we're going to start with a segment that we've come to love called the 60-Second Soapbox. So if you're new to the show, we take 60 seconds to talk about anything, whether it be life achievement, something negative you want to talk about, or something that's really just irking you. But the platform is that you have 60 seconds as opposed to turn it into a 30-minute rant or whatever. So, there's your 60 seconds, and you can talk about whatever you want. So, Coach, your 60 seconds starts right now.
All right, timer's going. Something that's bothered me the last 24 hours in the spirit of March Madness, the lack of respect that the program of Kansas Jayhawks and their head coach, Bill Self, has received with their thrashing from Auburn. I get it. It was a down year for Kansas. Only their second 10-loss season under Bill Self. But what really bothers me is that people are now calling for Bill Self's head and calling for him to be fired. This is terrible. This is utterly the worst take I've heard probably all year in any sports. Bill Self is one of the best coaches in the NCAA right now. He's definitely one of the best coaches in Kansas program's history. For the first time since 2008, KU was not seeded at 1 or 2. That's 10 years, folks. 10 years and they were a 4 seed. It wasn't like they were a 9 or a 10 seed. But I just want a little PSA. If you speak about Kansas basketball, if you speak about Bill Self, if you feel that name leaving your lips, it better be said with some damn veneration because they've earned it and they're one of the best programs. I don't care if you don't like them, but you better respect them. I'll step off.
Step off that box, son. Well said, though. It is crazy. I'll just touch on it briefly, but yeah, it is crazy that there's even that thought floating around. I mean, that program is not just a premier program, it's a top, arguably 2, but we can for sure say top 5 program in the entire country, and it's because he built it that way. And it's one of the premier places to play. It's a premier place to go watch a basketball game. And yeah, as you mentioned, 9 losses heading into the tournament, 10 after today or last night's loss. And they were still a 4 seed, and they had injuries. I know that's not an excuse. Everyone has injuries. You got to get through them, but crazy talk.
Yeah, and we're literally, this is the first year they haven't won the conference in 14 years.
Yeah.
14 years.
14 years, exactly. So
let's fire him the first year he doesn't do it.
I know plenty of teams out there, probably 230 whatever other programs that would happily take him if Kansas was dumb enough to do that, which they're not.
Yeah. No, they're not. And I actually, and there's probably even a handful of NBA teams that wouldn't mind having him on their sideline.
Yeah, probably. Absolutely. So, all right. Bill Self, your soapbox. Okay, so my soapbox. Definitely going to be very different than what yours was. It's a more life analogy or life thing that's happened that everyone deals with. Off the top of your head, I'm going to put you on the spot. We didn't talk about this pre-show. What are some things? Okay, this is going to be. I'm basically going to tell you, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. Some things in life that are self-inflicted you can think of that are absolutely your fault, but are the most frustrating and maniacal things that just drive you crazy. I'll give you kind of a hint what I'm getting at. Like if you're downtown and you're looking for something and you get in trouble by the law.
I'm thinking like speeding or parking or.
Okay, perfect. So parking tickets. That's what I'm going to get to.
Okay.
Yeah. Parking tickets are probably the most annoying and frustrating thing out there on the planet. Everyone gets them. So I'll just precursor this with a story. I got one the other day. I was out picking up food at a restaurant in downtown Pasadena. I parked, paid the meter, put in my 15 cents or whatever. Got me I put in like 45 cents and it got me 15 minutes, which is a joke anyway. It's like that's expensive to park down there. So I put that in there, go pick up my food, think I'm going to be in and out. Of course, the restaurant's busy and behind, and so I'm sitting there waiting. Food takes like 15, 20 minutes. As I'm coming out carrying like 2 big bags, drink tray, like all this stuff, I see the parking guy at my car writing a ticket, and I'm like running now, carrying all this stuff, looking like an idiot. Like, wait, I'm here, and you know what they say, like, well, I'm already writing it. Like that's it. They like basically just ignore you because I think they're embarrassed too. So anyway, my soapbox is to this: as much as we hate them, is there a job out there that's more hated for just doing their job? This is not someone that's out there necessarily doing something that is like if you're a server or a bartender, which I was for many years, and I got a lot of customers treating me badly. Usually, 95% of the time, it was because maybe I messed up an order or I spilled a drink. It was something that technically I did that, they didn't have to lash out like that, but, I messed up. For a parking attendant, technically the person is illegally parked. They're not, either didn't pay the meter, they parked in a red, or they did something incorrect. The guy is literally, or gal is literally just doing their job, and yet they get probably more hate. And I thought of this, and I thought of this as my soapbox because as I'm walking up to the car, I just looked at the guy, like just stared into his soul in disgust. Didn't chew him out, didn't say anything, but I was just so upset and unpleased. Looked at him, I tore the ticket off the freaking windshield, crumpled it up, and didn't even throw it in my car. Just threw it on the ground because I'm like, I'll get something in the mail anyway. Opened the door, put my food in there, slammed the door shut, peeled out as hard as I could. And as I'm driving away, I'm like, all right, this guy literally is just, my meter was expired. Yeah, it was more the restaurant's fault because they took time, but it wasn't the guy's fault. He was just doing his job. So next time you're out there, you see a parking attendant, maybe, turn the other cheek, not thank him for doing his job, but maybe don't tell him to get a real job like a lot of people do, He's just helping the city make money, I guess, and if anything, be at the city, not the guy doing the job. So went a little over a minute, but that's my soapbox.
Not bad. I like it. I can respect it. I've never actually gotten a parking ticket before, but knock on wood, hopefully I don't.
You've never got a parking ticket?
Nope.
Well, I guess, yeah, you're from Kansas City and then now live in Orange County, so if you live in like LA, you'll for sure. I've had hundreds of parking tickets. My first weekend that I moved to LA, another side note, when I lived in Long Beach, California, my first weekend, I was 18 years old, my car got towed.
Awesome.
First weekend. I thought I got stolen. I'm like, really? Long Beach is that ghetto? Like, I heard stories, like Snoop Dogg, but I didn't think it was that bad. I'm going to school here. I'm walking. And no, it was towed.
Welcome to town.
Welcome to LA. Yeah, so. Alrighty, well, let's get into some football talk. USC had their pro day on, I believe it was Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Wednesday. 16 Trojans participated. They had a number of guys that participated in the combine, but they also did some drills at the pro day as well. Porter Gustin, Chuma Udoga, Eamon, Biggie Marshall, all these guys, they were all there. Cameron Smith. I don't know if there's anything that kind of stood out to you. Marvell Tell, I thought, had a good pro day. Had a 41-inch vert. He did that again, even though he performed it at the combine. I believe he did it 42 at the combine, so even higher at the combine. But showing that he still has the athleticism and the jumping ability. Is there any guys that kind of, no pun intended, jumped off the page at you, or maybe or improved their stock at this pro day?
I don't think anybody drastically improved their stock. I think everybody kind of exited the way they came in. I guess if anybody may have improved slightly, I guess Porter Gustin, he had a nice vertical jump. He had a nice broad jump. But still, that's not going to bump you that high. But yeah, I think everybody just kind of did what they were expected. It was kind of a not really an exciting day, not really any big news to report.
Yeah.
I think everybody just kind of stayed the course.
Yeah, I think pretty much business as usual. One kind of interesting note that I don't think he's going to get drafted. Wasn't invited to the combine, but offensive lineman, and I'm going to butcher the name, so I apologize to him if he's if he's out there listening. Toa Lobodon, if I'm saying that correct, bench press 36 reps, which if he was at the combine would have ranked second among all players at the combine. It's kind of a fun.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun little tidbit there. So I mean, don't think he'll be drafted, and I don't think just by benching a lot that's going to change that. But still, good showing, good outing. Speaking of bench, though, one guy I'll let you kind of talk about, our dog Jake Olson we talked about last week.
Yeah, Jake Olson with the retinoblastoma, I believe it's called, the
Nice.
disease that took his eyes from him. It's a form of cancer. He was doing bench press reps to raise money and raise awareness for the disease, and I believe he put up 17, which if my calculations are correct, it's $56,000. And hats off to Jake for wanting to lead an initiative like that and try to help others that may be prevented to go through what he went through, unfortunately, and losing his eyesight. And but yeah, Jake Olson is definitely a leader and an inspiration, and I think this kid's only going to do bigger and better things as time goes on, and I think he's going to do a lot for awareness in cancer. And I'm proud of him. I've never met him. I know I've seen a lot of stories on him and watched a few documentaries on him, but I would love to meet this kid. I think it would be an honor to shake his hand, and proud of what he's done.
Yeah, super cool. Made it a very fun event whenever you have like a challenge like that and it's for such a good cause. It kind of adds some inspiration, but also just kind of takes the nerves off, makes it more fun, and it's not all business. I know it's like raising money and it's for a great cause, but that almost takes the pressure off. It's like, all right, we're here to we're raising money to help people, so it makes it cool.
Mm-hmm.
Of the guys, and then we're gonna keep this kind of short because there's not, like you said, it wasn't like last year when you have Sam Darnold. We kind of mentioned it with UCLA's pro day last week when we were talking about how that last year was like Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold. There was all this hype around it, and this year there's not really that blue chip guy coming into the draft. But there's still talent there, and there's still guys that can make an impact. Of all the guys going into the draft from USC, who do you think is going to be the first one to hear their name called?
I'm going to say either Eamon Marshall or Marvell Tell, one of the defensive backs. I think Porter Gustin won't be too far behind. But yeah, one of the defensive backs, Tell or Marshall, I think will be the first Trojan drafted.
Yeah, I was going to say that Cameron Smith kind of jumps off at me too a little bit.
That's another name. I actually, he slipped my mind. Yeah.
But I don't know. Something about Porter Gustin, I think just. We were kind of joking last week how he just reminds us of Clay Matthews, but I think it's just the fact that he's white, plays edge, and has long hair. So that it's too hard not to compare him. But I have a feeling he's going to go a little higher than I think originally projected. From the film I've watched, I like it. Has good awareness. He seems to always be around the ball. Good tackler. He plays edge, so he has that tenacity to get after the quarterback. But 36-inch vert, had a great 40 time, had a 10-foot broad jump. So his results there are in just the testing. He tested very well, but then able to put it on film and on the field as well. So I think he'll be the first guy taken. Wouldn't be surprised if Biggie Marshall was, or Cameron Smith as well. Marvell Tell also very athletic, good special teamer. We kind of mentioned it last week, guys like on UCLA that are going to be more drafted for special teams. But yeah, I think it's going to be Porter Gustin, personally.
Okay.
We
shall see.
Yeah, I mean, you can never have too many edge rushers. It is a good edge class, which could hurt him. Kind of probably what you were thinking there. Yeah, we'll see.
Do you? And I know we mentioned a lot of defensive guys. Do you think Edoga has any chance to be the first guy taken? Because I know some guys really like him.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because he's got a lot of talent, and he had a good career there at USC. And I guess think of it this way first. Do you think he will play tackle at the next level, or will he get moved inside?
Oh boy, if I hadn't seen him perform as well as he did at the Senior Bowl, I would say definitely slide inside. But the way he performed at the Senior Bowl, I don't think he has to slide inside. I think he's capable of playing a tackle position.
I think because I think what helps him is his athleticism. A lot of guys you see that get moved inside is either size does it or the fact that they're just not quite athletic enough for those speedy edge guys. And I think him playing at USC helps when it seems to be a team that pumps out offensive linemen, specifically tackles, and also they have good competition at the edge. You know, guys like Jalen Jelks out of Oregon. We just mentioned Porter Gustin on the other side of the ball at USC. All over the field in the Pac-12, kind of good edge guys that he had to face all year long. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Not the biggest guy, but, he's only 312, and I believe he's not like 6'7" or one of those guys. So, but
Right.
I think he could stay at that tackle position, and it wouldn't shock me if he is the first guy. Well, let me put it this way then: if we're talking first guys, do you think the first guy gets taken? There's not going to be a first round SC Trojan. Let's just start with that.
No.
Do you
no,
think
there
one
won't.
gets taken in the second, or are we looking more third, fourth, fifth?
I think we're looking early third, possibly sliding into the late second. Depends on because cornerback seems like it. I know there's a lot of names, but I could see Marshall kind of creeping up draft boards if there's a lot of teams that take corners early in the draft, like late first, early second. I could see Marshall sliding into the late second, but I think more than likely we're going to see the first Trojan called early third.
Yeah, that seems to be a good spot for those guys there as well. So I agree with you, my friend. Let's just stick with USC. Let's move right into our way too early 2019 predictions. So this is just for fun. I mean, depth charts aren't even finished yet. Guys aren't even fully committed and everything that have signed USC. I mean, is their offensive coordinator Graham Harrell official? Who knows? I mean, with all the changes going on there. So this is just more for fun. Spring camp did begin, so they are practicing, and I believe the spring game should be coming up here fairly soon. I don't have the date in front of me.
It's in April.
April, yeah.
I don't have the date either, but I do. It's in April.
Yeah. So, but the schedule's released, so that's why we can kind of do this, kind of go through quickly, game by game. USC season's going to go one of two ways, I think. I think they're either going to have a full rebound. I think Graham Harrell's going to do a great job. You know, he comes from North Texas where he turned that program. He was the OC, not the head coach, but he turned that offense into like a top 25 offense in the 2 years he was there. Turned their quarterback into good. He brings with him an air raid style, which probably Cliff Kingsbury would have done regardless when he was OC for 2 weeks before he moved on to the Cardinals. So they'll get that same, if you will, simpler offense that sophomore JT Daniels can now learn and hopefully be more effective in as they kind of simplify things, give it that air raid feel. So, yeah, we'll see if he can turn that in, but it's either going to be a rebound season where we see kind of an offensive rejuvenation and we see them get back to what we saw in the early 2000s, or it's going to be the complete opposite and they just fall flat on their face and Clay Helton's fired after 4 weeks. So I think it's one of the. I don't think it's going to be a season where they finish like this year, or 6-6, 5-7. So it's either going to be a 10-3, 11-2 year, or a 3-9 kind of year. That's what I think.
Okay, yeah. I definitely think it's going to be a bounce back. I know they lost some recruits and guys were transferring. But, you're returning your top three receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., and Tyler Vaughn's all coming back to help out JT Daniels, who had an up-and-down freshman year. But, I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to recover nicely from that Cliff Kingsbury falling out, whatever happened there. I mean, obviously he took the NFL head coaching job,
Yeah.
but and then the return of Christian Rector on the defense, I think is going to be huge. I think Rector is going to be that leader of the defense. That was really big for them. He could have entered the NFL draft, but he didn't. He's coming back to play in the Coliseum, and I think that's going to be huge for the defense. But yeah, I think with JT Daniels and those three receivers, and if Stephen Carr can do what he was expected to do all along.
If he can stay healthy. That's always been his MO, but tons of talent there.
Yeah. Took a lot of hits on defense. We mentioned it with all the pro day guys, but I think hopefully JT Daniels can have a better sophomore year with those receivers.
Yeah, and that you mentioned with JT Daniels is up and down year, but I think what makes it exciting is we saw the flashes of why he was such a top recruit and so talked about going into the year. Is you see some throws, you're like, okay, I get it, and then you'd see the he's a true freshman, and you see the true freshman mistakes and him throwing in the triple coverage. So things that need to be worked out and maturity and stuff like that. But again, I think if they implement this air raid kind of offense, and with Graham Harrell's tutelage, who was a elite college quarterback, didn't really have success at the next level, but had tremendous success at Texas Tech and broke a lot of NCAA records while he was there. We could really see JT Daniels turn into a very nice college prospect.
Yeah, we really could. I agree with you.
Do you like the Graham Harrell hire?
It's not terrible. I mean, he was at North Texas, and Graham Harrell had a great playing career at Texas Tech, and I don't think it's a bad hire. It's a nice plan B behind Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. Honestly,
I'm not gonna say he's the right man for the job quite yet, because it's late March. He's kind of an unproven guy, so for an unproven guy to take over an unproven offense with a lot of young kids, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
I hear you there. Definitely not a ton of coaching experience. But you could argue not a ton less than the guy before him, Cliff Kingsbury. So as much as I really liked the Cliff Kingsbury hire when it happened. I thought it was a great move, getting a guy who coached as a head coach to come in and kind of design and change the offense. And obviously when it happened with him, so it's I think a very nice consolation prize, and a guy that they can still implement kind of what their vision was. Obviously they thought about why they would hire Cliff Kingsbury, and there had to be a vision and a kind of future forecast of what they wanted their offense to look like. And Graham Harrell, I think, can still complete that vision and kind of build right into what they were already doing. What I do like about him is that, he played under Mike Leach at Texas Tech, and then after his pro career and playing kind of as journeyman there, he actually coached under Mike Leach up at Washington State as a receivers coach. So he has some knowledge there with receivers, played quarterback. He was OC and quarterbacks coach at North Texas. Now he comes into USC and has, in the short coaching time he has a lot of knowledge. And he's kind of, we talked about in shows before, one of those quarterbacks that has such success collegiately, speaking of another air raid guy, Gardner Minshew, who doesn't really have pro success, but then it ends up being a very, very good coach. So I think he has all the tools to turn that offense around, and I think they can do good. I think 2019 could be a very good bounce back year, and I think people could be surprised, and I don't know if grateful is the right word, but pleasantly happy that Clay Helton stuck around, or was kept around, I should say.
Yeah, no, I'm not sold on Helton. I'm going to be honest.
I'm not either. But I like Graham Harrell.
I mean, it's hard for me to say that this is going to be a definite turnaround. It's going to be a better season just with the maturation of the quarterback and the receivers and that stuff. But looking right off the bat at their schedule, I mean, Oregon's going to be a tough go. I think the Pac-12 South is Utah's to lose. And I think, but come November 23rd at the Coliseum, I think USC, UCLA, and this, I don't know if you want to touch on USC a little bit more, but I think that game at the Coliseum could be for second place in the Pac-12 South.
Yeah, the Pac-12 South is going to be really interesting because I think last year was a definite down year, but it wasn't necessarily a year in the decline. I think you have see a lot of these newer head coaches with Chip Kelly at UCLA, Herm Edwards over at Arizona State, and Kevin Sumlin at Arizona, who are going to be implementing new systems and new schemes, and it's going to take some time, but we saw a lot of positive things from those programs in that they're going to be able to really grow and become formidable again. But I think USC is farther along, and I know it was a down year, but I think they're going to have a very nice rebound year heading into 2019. So that being said, returning, obviously, QB JT Daniels. Saw some good things from his last year, but we want to see more consistency out of him. Hopefully Graham Harrell will be able to get the most out of him, implementing that air raid offense. He can really fit and thrive. At running back, Stephen Carr, if he can stay healthy. Tons of talent. Tremendous runner. Just hopefully he can stay on the field. That's obviously important. Other at running back, I always mess this guy's name up, but he's a tremendous runner as well. Vave Malape, I believe, is how I'm going to say it. If that's wrong, I apologize. But finished with 8 touchdowns last year. He returns again this year. And then also Marquise Stepp, who was kind of a redshirt freshman last year, actually saw some limited action in a couple games, but he's kind of that goal line ground and pound guy that a lot of people were excited about. So he'll have a role as well. And then most notably returning the receiving core with Tyler Vaughns, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tremendous receiving core. So, I mean, JT Daniels is surrounded by really good talent, and then obviously with the addition of Graham Harrell at the offensive coordinator position, I think USC can have a really nice year, and I know people are kind of down on it just because, Lynn Swan, people aren't happy with as the AD, aren't super happy that Clay Helton's returning, but sometimes you just need that continuity, especially with these young players, especially with a brand new quarterback. You don't want to switch it up again because then you basically waste his growth. We saw that with Max Brown back a few years ago when the coaching change just kept changing and he was his top prospect and ended up not really ever amounting to something. A lot of that to blame is because of just the change and not having that continuity. So that I think is going to help with JT Daniels' maturity and his progression. So getting into the schedule, I think they're going to finish in a fight, as you mentioned, for that Pac-12 South. I know you said that last game with UCLA could see them fighting for second place. I think USC is going to be fighting for first place. Probably with Utah is probably the race they're going for. They have a tough schedule. Starts off the bat with Fresno State, Mountain West team. Very good, though. Marcus McMaryion, great quarterback last year, moves on. But they still have talent on the roster. They play Stanford. They play at Brigham Young, who always seems to play Pac-12 teams every year. Always give them fits. Either they leave with a victory or they at least give them a show for their money. But I think USC is able to come away with that one. They play Utah. They play Washington. They play at Notre Dame again this year. So they have a tough schedule. That being said, though, I think they do finish 9-3. Just going through the schedule. What are we, March 23rd right now? Don't even have the final rosters in place. A lot of guys haven't fully committed yet, so it's hard to really break it down too much. But just what I'm looking at, I think they have big wins against Utah, big wins against Cal, at Cal, second to last game of the year. Cal, I think, is going to have a tremendous defense. As they had last year, they're going to be bringing back a lot of starters. They're going to have a good defense. But I think SC is going to have a stronger defense than Cal's offense, and I think they're going to have a strong enough offense to put enough points on the board to get them past them. So we get to the last game of the season with UCLA. It's going to be a good one. I think they're looking for redemption. You were at the game last year at the Rose Bowl, but I think they're going to come away with a victory, having that more continuity at the head coach, continuity at the quarterback position. JT Daniels going into his double-digit starts at that point. So, I like him at 9-3. That's a definite glass half full approach after last season, but I think they can do it. I don't know your thoughts before I move to UCLA.
I would not put them at 9-3. I think they're going to be better. I think they'll be above 500. I think they will reach a bowl game. I think 9-3 is pretty generous. But yeah, they will be improved. I just don't think by that much.
Yeah, it's glass half full. I mean, the three losses I have for them are at Washington, at Notre Dame, and versus Oregon. I think Oregon, we talked pre-show, I think Oregon could be the best team in the Pac-12, top to bottom, just because of all their returning. Obviously, Justin Herbert coming back. So I don't have them losing any games that they shouldn't, if that makes sense. It seems like every year USC loses games that they should not. And I have them winning all those this year. So is there any games before I move on that you think, I'm assuming you probably have all those three as losses, because those are tough matchups at Washington, at Notre Dame versus Oregon. So outside of those three, are there any you think they lose that they maybe on paper shouldn't, or just maybe you think on paper they're just not as good as the other teams?
One that sticks out to me, I think Cal. I think Cal beats them for the second year in a row. I think Cal's going to be a really good team this year. But other than that, did you have Utah? Do you have them beating Utah?
I had them beating Utah, yes.
Okay, yeah, I don't think that happens. I think Utah beats USC. So yeah, I would add Cal and USC or Cal and Utah to those list of losses.
So you have them finishing 7-5, which is still improvement, still a bowl game. So that's people, SC in this town is so it's like a Alabama, it's like a Notre Dame. They're expected to be in the national championship conversation every single year. So 7-5 year isn't going to excite a lot of people, but when you improve your record by 3 or 4, 5 wins, that's an improvement. So, I think I have them beating Utah because it's at the Coliseum at home. That's where I put the difference there. So there you have it. Improvement from both of us. On to UCLA. I'll let you take it away with the Bruins.
All right, UCLA, a couple of key guys. They signed a guy by the name of Sean Ryan, who I think is going to slide right in and start at left tackle. He's a 4-star recruit according to most websites, but I think this kid's going to be the future at left tackle. He'll be a draft draft day guy at some point down the road. But yeah, Sean Ryan, and then obviously DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, going to come in and be the day one starter at quarterback. And then Joshua Kelly, who announced that he's actually coming back for his redshirt senior year, the transfer from UC Davis, the running back. He's who blew up last year, especially in that Rose Bowl game. I think he had like 280 some yards against USC. So those two guys leading the offense with DTR and Joshua Kelly. The offense is going to be good hands in the defense. The secondary is going to be the strength there with Darnay Holmes and Quentin Lake, cornerback and safety respectively. I think those two guys are going to help lead that secondary. Diving into the schedule, I have them improved, but they went 3-9 last year. I have them going 5-7, still missing a bowl game, 2-game improvement, but a couple of highlights. I mean, they have a tough schedule, man.
Yeah, really tough.
Yeah, I mean, they start out the year against Cincinnati, who a lot like Utah, bringing everybody back, man. Cincinnati is going to be a tough team next year for a lot of people. For UCLA, who's a team growing, to start 2019 on the road in Cincinnati, that's tough. I don't think that's going to be a win. And then obviously Oklahoma coming into the Rose Bowl, the Aikman Bowl. Come on, Oklahoma's going to have Jalen Hurts, another Heisman candidate at quarterback for the third year in a row. They're just not there yet. Oklahoma's gonna come in and take over and do what they do. But I do have UCLA going on a little bit of winning streak. I think they have a string. I think they upset Washington State, and then Arizona and Oregon State. I think those are 2 wins. But USC, I agree with you. And they end their year with just like they started it. They end their year with a really tough stretch at Utah, at USC, and then Cal at home. I have them losing. Actually, I have them losing their last 4. Especially those last 3, Utah, SC, and California. Those are really tough games to end your season on. And I have them losing all of those games. It's just a tough schedule for a young team, growing quarterback, a growing offense who's going to be in their second year under their head coach Chip Kelly. They're young. I think Joshua Kelly's going to have another great year. Dark horse Heisman candidate. But yeah, they're just not there yet. Definitely improved, 5-7. Don't quite make the bowl game, but definitely something to build on for 2020.
Yeah, I pretty much have it very, very similar. A team on the rise, a team to be excited about. I have them kind of flirting with that 6-6 record where I think they could potentially get into a bowl game, which would be a huge improvement. But their schedule is tough, man. Like you said, those last 3 games, and then even the 4th, as you mentioned too, against Colorado, and it's at home, but still against a team returning their starting quarterback and superstar receiver, and they play the toughest of the Pac-12 North. Like you mentioned, Cincinnati, so it's going to be a tough build for them, but I think they'll definitely improve. I think Chip Kelly is going to get them on the right track. He's got the perfect quarterback that basically resembles that of Marcus Mariota there in DTR. Yep. So they'll do some fun things, and I think it'll be as last year, the first half of the season, how it was just like a just huge disappointment and almost you hate saying embarrassing because these are college kids. These aren't even technically yet full-grown men. Like NFL, you can say embarrassing. That's like they're doing a job. They're getting paid millions of dollars. You can call it embarrassing. You don't want to call a college program embarrassing. But there was times last year at the beginning of the year where it was tough to watch. It was like, man, this is bad for the Pac-12. This is bad for Los Angeles. And then the last half of the season, even though they lost some of those games, only winning 3, it was like, okay, here now it's not embarrassing. Like, these are good games. Even though they're losing some of them, they're competing. We're seeing like the system get in place. We're seeing improvement. As you mentioned, Joshua Kelly, who wasn't even on the radar last year at all as a running back, kind of came to his own and became, if you will, a superstar. Caleb Wilson had a great year, who won't be there next year because he's going to the draft. But a lot of things to build upon. So I think they'll definitely improve, flirt with that 6-6, potentially play in a bowl game, if not finish in that 5-7 realm, and then really 2020 and 2021 is when we'll see them start to get back into that Pac-12 South prowess where they're competing for the division, competing for Rose Bowls every year, which I think Chip Kelly will get them to. It just won't be next year.
Yeah, I agree. And if they do go 6-6, I think it's that Colorado game. But other than that, I just don't feel comfortable putting W's next to Utah, SC, or Cal. I think that's just a terrible stretch to end the season on.
Yep, and at Stanford, don't love that one either. At Washington State, don't love that one either.
I do have them upsetting the Cougars and Pullman. Just a little tidbit there.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, tough road for him, but yeah, we'll see improvement. One little side note, you mentioned Jalen Hurts going to Oklahoma. Can you imagine if he wins the Heisman and they have 3 straight transfer quarterbacks kill it and win the Heisman and potentially watch him? I mean, we'll see what happens with Kyler Murray, but if he ends up going number 1 overall and then watch because of his rebirth, Jalen Hurts all of a sudden is in the contention for like a top draft pick out of nowhere.
That'd be pretty wild. Now, and I may have misunderstood, but did Kyler Murray transfer?
I believe he transferred from A&M. Let me double check to be safe before we move on. But I'm pretty sure he transferred there 2 years ago because he was a transferred Baker's senior year, I want to say. But let's
yeah, you're right.
Let's
He
make sure
he started at Texas A&M. You're absolutely right.
Woo! We even got the college he transferred from, right? Yeah. So yeah,
wow.
3 quarterbacks, 3 starters in a row transferred. Baker transferred from Texas Tech, Kyler Murray from A&M, and now Jalen Hurts from Alabama. And then if playing with Laken Riley, Jalen Hurts, everyone can say what they want about Tua. Jalen Hurts was talented. He wasn't like a bad quarterback. Tua was better.
Yeah.
But maybe in that system with Lincoln, Jalen can surprise people and have a standout year.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And speaking of off subject, but speaking of transfer quarterbacks, DTR's former he was the successor to Tate Martell at Bishop Gorman, who committed to Ohio State but transferred to the U, Miami. We could have 2 former Bishop Gorman quarterbacks and talk about a fit for Chip Kelly, man. Tate Martell would have been great in Chip Kelly's offense.
Yeah.
Had Chip Kelly arrived at UCLA a year sooner, maybe Tate Martell's a UCLA quarterback. But no, DTR and Tate Martell, I think 2 former Bishop Gorman quarterbacks are going to have we're going to have fun watching these guys on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect segue because we're going to get into our brackets of LA college football teams, and one of the teams we have on there finished their season against a said Miami Hurricanes team. Obviously, different quarterbacks at the time and many, many years ago. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with this segment. We took basically the top 8 college programs in LA history. We did, to make it fair, choose 4 USC and 4 UCLA. Probably, if we're being honest with ourselves, probably could have been more SC teams than UCLA. I mean, if we're being real honest with ourselves, from 01 to 08, we probably could have just put every USC team as our 8 teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, that wouldn't be fun. So we took 4 SC teams, 4 UCLA teams. Didn't plan it this way, but because of how we ranked them, we did this pre-show, but because of how we ranked it, actually worked out that the first round was all a SC team against a UCLA team. Mm-hmm. Didn't plan it, but that's just how we ranked them. So it kind of worked out perfect in that sense. But yeah, we'll just kind of go down we pre-ranked the 1 through 8, and then we went not with each other and moved along the bracket separately, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm making sense there.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So let's just go. Let's go. Do you want to go 8 through 1, and we'll kind of just talk about the team, and then we'll go quickly then who wins?
Yeah. That works for me.
Or should we go 1 through 8?
I mean, should we like say who won the 8th game, and then like who you know what I mean? Like
okay. The
1 seed play the 8th seed, 2 seeds play the 7th
Sounds
seed,
good.
3 seed play. Yeah.
Sounds good. So and it's perfect that this is Sunday. It's our Sunday selection committee. So, so the 8th seed that we have, and I'll let you talk more about it, but I'll announce who it is the 1988 UCLA football team.
Yeah, so the 88 team, led by none other than Troy Aikman, who
yes, sir.
came in, transferred from Oklahoma, led UCLA that year. We made him the 8th ranked team. The 88 squad was one of the better ones under head coach Terry Donahue. 88, they went 10-2, won the Cotton Bowl, finished the year ranked 6th. At one point, they were ranked number 1 in the nation, which is really, I mean, for any college team to be ranked at any point in the season number 1, it's a huge accomplishment. So we felt like 88 should have been on here for UCLA, having the polarizing quarterback of Troy Aikman for what he did in the NFL. So yeah, 88 is our 8th seed.
Yep, I think it's fair. our number 1 seed they're playing. Shouldn't be a surprise here, I don't think, but the number 1 seed going into this bracket is the 2004 USC Trojans. I could just break down all their accolades, and that should be enough. They went wire-to-wire, number 1 seed from the start of the season to the finish, national champions. They won the Pac-12. They had the Heisman winner in Matt Leinart. They were not just undefeated, but they were dominant in winning fashion. They won the Orange Bowl that year for the national championship against Oklahoma. They won that game 55-19. Just a dominant team. Never really even had. You look through the schedule; they were barely even ever tested. There was a few games where they won by a touchdown, but that was about the closest anyone ever came. The 04 USC Trojan team, who, if you want to get technical, their season's vacated thanks to all the Reggie Bush stuff that happened, but we're not basing it off that. So we're basing it strictly off play on the field, and that team with Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, among many other players, had to be our number 1 seed.
Yeah, and just real quick, I think that's so stupid to vacate stuff. We all saw it happen. We can't say that. I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. 2004 USC, one of the greatest college football programs of all time.
Yeah, well, this is a whole different thing, and maybe this will be a 60-second soapbox one day, so we don't spend too much time on it. But I just think it's so dumb when the transgressions of a player, and maybe I know it technically goes to the program who was, giving Reggie Bush's parents a house or whatever, however you want to get deep into and delve into that. But why punish the program and the rest of the players that had it? And then obviously they took scholarships away from future players. Then you hurt players that had never even had a thought of USC, and then now they can't because of scholarships, and you hurt them that way. So I just think the punishment is strange. But anyway, strictly on the field, 04 is our number 1 ranking. So moving on to our 2-7 matchup. Number 7. You want to talk about number 7 or number 2?
I'll leave number 2 to you.
Okay, so number 7 for you. The number 7 seed is the 2014 UCLA team.
Yeah, 2014 UCLA. This team, pretty underrated in terms of what they did. In terms of NFL talent on that roster, Brett Hundley was leading the helm, who's now the backup. He was in Green Bay. I'm not sure if he still is or not. But Brett Hundley was on that team. The defense, though, that's kind of where we decided to put this team on this list. They finished 10-3, won the Alamo Bowl, finished ranked number 10 in the year. But you look at the roster, they had guys like Miles Jack, Eddie Vanderdoss, good Lord, Eric Kendricks, Kenny Clark, who also plays for Green Bay, Fabian Murrow, just a ton of NFL talent on that defense. So it was almost impossible for us to leave them off the list. So 2014 UCLA had a great year under Jim Mora. They're our 7 seed.
Yep, very worthy for it. Some of those NFL players on that roster were just tremendous when you look at it like that. They had a lot of talent on that team. Not that you can take away finishing 10th overall on a season, but you'd almost think they could finish even higher just with those NFL players they had there. But our number 2 seed is the 05 USC Trojan team, who, it could be scrutinized because technically they lost in the 06 National Championship Rose Bowl to the Texas Longhorns. But you can't discredit what the team did, and it came down to one game. In reality, it came down to one play, and they came up short. But as a season as a whole, it had won 34 straight games. Once again, ranked number 1 the entire season. Finished number 2, obviously, because they lost to the number 2 Texas. But they beat teams the roster was the same still. You had Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, all these tremendous players. Dwayne Jarrett, Ryan Khalil, Steve Smith, Lendell White, all these just crazy good players who actually went on to have pretty good NFL careers as well. But then you just look at the teams. They beat number 24 Oregon 45-13. They beat number 9 Notre Dame. They beat them 34-31. They beat number 11 UCLA. Rivalry game, crosstown rival. They were ranked 11th in the country. They beat them 66-19. This is just a team that was head and shoulders above every other team in the country except for Texas. And Yeah, hats off to him. Had a great year. Finished number 2. Obviously, because of, as mentioned, allegations, that season was basically vacated. But on the field, did some special things that year. Arguably one of the greatest college teams of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, arguably better than 04, but that loss in the national championship to Vince Young, deciding factor there.
Yep. Yeah, it's a grand debate for a lot of people. So,
yeah.
All right, on to the 3-6 matchup. Do you want to talk about the 6 or the 3 seed?
I'll stick with UCLA. We'll kind of head since I feel like you're more of a USC LA kind of guy. I feel like I'm more of a UCLA, and I know that they're technically not in LA, and not technically even in Orange County. But I feel like they're kind of more of an Orange County vibe, and I feel like I'm the USC guy, you're the LA guy. I don't know. I kind of like that.
Okay.
Kind of like what we're doing here.
We'll stick with that then, absolutely. But yeah, they're in Brentwood, but it does have that more. Yeah, it's a blend, but it seems like more. It just fits with that like OC vibe. So.
Sure.
Okay, well then our 6th seed is going to be the 2016 USC Trojans. This was an interesting team to put on the list because I think a lot of people, even though it was so recent, may forget about this as great SC teams because they didn't even compete for the national title. They weren't in the playoff. But, the way the season starting off, I believe, 1-3, and they were basically lost for dead. That was the year Max Brown was officially given the starting quarterback reins. Sam Darnold was just this young gun that was going to start the next year but didn't know if he was ready. So 1-3 in college football, your season it's done. It's over. Like, you have no shot if you're 1-3. Even if you run the table, like, you're maybe you'll get a bowl game, obviously, but you're not a chance for a national championship, let alone a premier bowl game. So anyway, they throw in Sam Darnold in there, and they do run the table and, finish 9-3 in the season, and they get invited. They end up winning the Pac-12 South, or they finished second, I believe, but they end up getting invited to the Rose Bowl. I think that was the year Washington got invited to the college football playoff. So SC then was able to slide into the Rose Bowl there. Played Penn State in. Everyone talks about the 06 Rose Bowl, rightfully so. But this 2017 Rose Bowl, because it's played on New Year's Day, maybe a better or more entertaining Rose Bowl game. Debatable, I know, but it was a great one with Trace McSorley and the Penn State Nittany Lions. USC came out on top. Finished 3rd in the polls for the season. So it was a season that started off so poor and ended up just so great and such a turnaround. It was kind of the affirmation that Clay Helton was the right choice for the job. Because remember, this was after Steve Sarkisian was fired in 2015. Clay Helton, who was the offensive coordinator, took over in 2015. And then 2016, it was like, are they going to bring someone else in new? And they decided, you know what? No, we're just going to keep Clay Helton as the coach. And this was like, started off 1-3. Everyone's like, fire him. What are you doing? And then they just have this full go 8 wins in a row, plus 9 at the Rose Bowl, and really put on a tremendous show. And Sam Darnold had his coming out party as one of the nation's great quarterbacks that we would see drafted 2 years later. So, yeah. Our 2016 USC takes the 6th spot in the rankings.
I like it. 2016 was definitely a good year for the Trojans. Underrated year, I think, shattered by just so many other great years. But yeah, 2016 is definitely underrated. But they face off against a 3 seed, another, I would consider them underrated team, 1997 UCLA. This team finished 10-2. Finished 5th in the AP poll at the end of the year. They won the Cotton Bowl over Texas A&M. This team started the year off 0-2, lost a close game to all right. Just listen to the names that this team had to face starting the year off. So they went on the road, Washington State, lost by 3 points to a Ryan Leaf-led Washington State. Then they go on, go back to the Rose Bowl and host the 3rd-ranked Tennessee Volunteers, lost by 6, and I'm sure you know who led that team. One Peyton Manning.
Yep.
So they start the year off losing
the 1 and 2 picks in the next draft.
Right, yeah, they lost to the 1 or 2 picks in the next draft to start the year off, and then they go on the road and beat a Texas team that was led by running back Ricky Williams. So three NFL guys right off the bat. They beat Texas on the road 66-3 that year. And starting the year off 0-2, they rambled off 10 straight wins to win the Pac-10. And they beat USC that year in the Coliseum 31-24, and then they went on to beat Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl down in Dallas, which you could have considered a home game for Texas A&M, and they beat them 29-23. So that 97 UCLA team, who was led by Cade McNown.
They weren't laid by McNown?
They weren't laid by him. No, I'm sorry. But a running back by the name of Skip Hicks, who had a very, very productive year, almost 1,300 yards, 22 rushing touchdowns by old Skippy.
My dog Skip.
But yeah, that 97 UCLA Bruins team, man, it doesn't get very underrated, man. To the names they had to face to start the year off, and the names they beat, and to ramble and end the year with 10 straight wins after 2 very tough losses to the former number 1 and number 2 overall picks, respectively, Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. But yeah, man, 1997 UCLA, they are just a couple touchdowns away from finishing off the year undefeated.
Yeah, no, that was a great team, and Cade McNown, and I didn't even mean to do this, but do you know there's an actual movie called My Dog Skip?
Yeah, it's based on a book.
Yeah, with Frankie Muniz as the lead. So, My Dog Skip, but running back Skip Hicks. Yeah, Cade McNown he's arguably one of the greatest college quarterbacks. I don't think I wouldn't put him like top 5, but he's in the conversation, and he's definitely on a list. Had a tremendous 4-year career at UCLA, put up outstanding numbers. I think he still holds, I believe, to this day. I don't have them in front of me, but he's either 1 or 2 in almost every category. So great year for them there. Yeah, that's a brutal schedule, and then to rebound like that and go on to win the Cotton Bowl. So impressive, to say the least. And I think every year, when you look at teams like USC, UCLA, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, it's almost, I mean, obviously national championship and conference is the goal, but deep down it's beating your crosstown rival, and they beat USC that year. So they checked all the boxes pretty much.
They sure did.
So then our final matchup, the 4 and 5 seed. We have, since we're doing it top to bottom, we start with the 5 seed. So the 5 seed is the 82 UCLA team. So Talon, I'll let you talk about them real quick.
Sure. 1982, another Terry Donahue-led team, finished 10-1-1, finished 5th ranked, won the Rose Bowl, which, back in those days seemed to be the end-all be-all, especially for any Pac-10 team. They had some interesting names on the roster. Rick Neuheisel, who was not the starter that year, but he played a little bit. Obviously went on to a great coaching career. I think he's currently an AAF coach, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me. But yeah, UCLA that year finished 5th, went 10-1-1. I believe they beat USC that year. Yes, they beat them by 1 point in the Rose Bowl. That 11th ranked UCLA against 15th ranked USC. They won 20-19, and then they went on to win the Rose Bowl against Michigan. In 1982, they beat them by actually the second time they had played Michigan that year. They beat them early in the year. So to beat a team twice at the caliber of Michigan, pretty impressive. Granted, Rose Bowl, essentially it was a home game for UCLA, but an impressive season nonetheless. They tied Arizona, which is really the only, not the only, but the biggest negative that year, because Arizona was kind of a struggling team back then. They went 6-4, so that's the biggest knock on this team. But other than that, had a great year, finished out pretty close to the top of the rankings. If any team that's ranked in the top 5 is a team to be reckoned with. So yeah, 1982 UCLA is going to round out the UCLA teams and the 5th seed in our bracket.
There you go. So, and then we have at the 4th seed the 2008 USC Trojans. Just another great run with Pete Carroll-led teams. They finished number 2 in the coaches poll, number 3 in the AP poll. If not for a hiccup, I would say. And we were talking, it's funny, we were talking about Oregon State earlier about if they would get back to promise, or we were talking about, I think, pre-show. And this was back when Oregon State was a good program. They finished actually 19th ranked, but their only loss the entire year for USC was against Oregon State. At Oregon, they were the 1 seed at the time, or the 1 overall ranked at the time, lost in Corvallis, but that was their only loss. They finished 12-1. They won the Rose Bowl against Penn State. So they had a very successful year in terms of that. Just missed out on a national championship yet again. And if you look at if you just look at the roster, I think alone is what really makes this team a worthy 4 seed. In the fact that look at quarterback Mark Sanchez. Say what you want about him in the NFL, but he was a tremendous college quarterback. Defensive tackle, they had Jarrell Casey was on that team. Defensive end, Everson Griffin, was on that team. You have linebackers, the trio of Brian Cushing and Clay Matthews and Raymond Luga. Maybe the greatest college linebacking core that I can think of, and I think it'd be hard to debate otherwise. So just the teams just the players and the talent that was on that roster, obviously what they did with it, going 12-1, winning the Rose Bowl, finishing first in the Pac-10 yet again. Tremendous team and great ranking and worthy, I think, of the 4 seed. And Steve Sarkisian was the offensive coordinator that year.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of big names, man.
Yeah.
That's another. USC has so many great teams. It was kind of hard to narrow them down to just 4, but 08, it's kind of crazy to think that they're that's considered the 4th best in this bracket of USC teams, because that was a great team.
Right? Yeah. Yep. And we probably should have said this ahead of time, but we did our rankings based on 1980 and sooner. So we can go back in the 70s or 60s or 50s. So there was great teams back then too, but we did not include those. So, all right, sir. Well, now we get to the part where we don't know the answers. The rest of the bracket. So we get into, the 1 and the 8 seed. Let's not start with the 1 and 8 seed. Let's start with the 2 and 7 matchup. Who did you have between the 05 USC team and the 2014 UCLA team?
So every year, March Madness, there's an upset. There's multiple upsets every year. The upset, 2005 USC, the 2nd seeded team, falls to the 7th seeded 2014 UCLA Bruins. That defense, man, just the caliber of players they had. Granted, the 05 team, I feel like 04 was more Matt Leinart. That was a Matt Leinart show, but 05 they leaned very heavily on Reggie Bush and LenDale White. I think both of them went over 1,000 yards that year. Both of them had double-digit touchdowns. But with a D-line with Eddie Vanderdoss and Kenny Clark, and then Eric Kendricks at linebacker and Miles Jack. I mean, that's a solid defense, man. And if anybody can stop that running game, I would assume that UCLA Bruins team could do it. So Reggie Bush and LenDale White just come up a little bit short. They can't handle that staunch defense of UCLA. So the 2014 UCLA Bruins was with the biggest upset of the day over the 05 national runner-up USC Trojans.
Yeah, maybe the upset of the century. Okay. Well, good for you. That's great. It'll be fun when you hear how my bracket turns out, because it's not that.
I assumed.
Yeah,
I assumed it wouldn't turn out that way.
I have the 05 Trojans moving on in this round. I like a lot the 14 UCLA team. All the guys, I won't re-mention them. Great defense. They had Brett Hundley was a good quarterback. I just think the 05 USC offense is just one for the ages. They had a lot of good defensive guys as well. I just think they're just too good, and they overmatch UCLA and move on to the next round.
Hard to argue that, but
Yeah, I liked what you said, so I didn't really need to stoke the fire at all. But
sure.
All right, so moving up the bracket to the 3-6 matchup. The 97 UCLA Bruins versus the 2016 USC Trojans. I'll go ahead and start on this one. I took the higher seed again, the 3 seed. I took UCLA to move on. Cade McCown, as I mentioned, as great as Sam Bradford's year was in 2016, I love Cade McCown's body of work overall. He was more of a polished kind of college quarterback. Sam Darnold has that ceiling, but Cade McCown was just the polished tactician in the pocket that he did at UCLA, finishing 5th overall. I like what UCLA did that year. I like what they had on the roster, and I'm taking them over the 16 USC team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had the same thing. 97 UCLA moves on. Facing guys like Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning and then Ricky Williams. If it's a lot different facing those guys than facing Sam Darnold. No offense to Sam Darnold, he's just not there. He might get there one day, but at this point, yeah, UCLA just has a 97 version. They have just the experience against top talent. So, yeah, UCLA can go in there and handle that 2016 USC team. As special as that team was, and Cinderella-ish, if you will, 97 handles business.
Yeah, that when you really just think about that in 3 consecutive weeks they played Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning, and Ricky Williams. That's impressive.
Pretty
Obviously,
impressive.
they lost 2 of them, but it was close, very close, and then they won the third one and went on to go undefeated the rest of the way. So it's a special team.
Yeah, it is.
Probably one that a lot of people forget about since they weren't like in the Rose Bowl, but good Cotton Bowl win.
Yep.
So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving up, the 4-5 matchup between 08 USC and 82 UCLA. I will let you start this one off.
I went 08 USC. We mentioned it, pretty underrated, really, in terms of college football success. 1 loss on the year, the caliber of talent they had. Your typical USC Trojans team, just too much to handle for the 82 team. It kind of goes without saying USC is richer in history and richer in success. So USC handles business against 82 UCLA.
Yep, I agree with you there. I think if in week 3 or 4, whatever week it was, if they didn't lose by 6 to Oregon State up in Corvallis, they would have been national champions again, finishing the season 13-0, wire-to-wire, number 1 overall ranked yet again. So it's hard to, when you're looking at overall product and overall talent, it's hard to discredit them based on 1 lapse and 1 loss when it comes at least to these rankings. So I take the 08 team, and just that linebacking core alone of Maluga, Matthews, and Cushing is enough to get you excited.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, so, okay, 08 USC moves on for both of us. So now the 1-8 matchup, assuming we both have the same answer here, but the 04 SC and the 88 UCLA Bruins. Love UCLA, love the 88 Troy Aikman, go on to win the Cotton Bowl, transfers over there, does some good things. They impress a lot of people and kind of put their name back on the map after having some down years before that. But you can't go against the wire-to-wire champs. Matt Leinert's amazing Heisman run, kind of touched on it all when we were first building the bracket. So to me, it's pretty obvious the 04 SC team has to move on.
Oh yeah. This is the one that I feel like March Madness is always that Cinderella that keeps it close at halftime, and then second half the depth and the talent really come to show itself. That's what happens here. 04 USC, just too much. Troy Aikman is not enough to keep UCLA in this. They keep it interesting at halftime, but yeah, toward the second half, the firepower of SC just comes to fruition, and UCLA does not have what it takes.
Yeah, and looking strictly at college, again, we're not even going to touch the NFL, but looking strictly at college, Matt Leinart was a better college quarterback than Troy Aikman, which is weird to say because Troy Aikman's a Hall of Famer. But if you look at strictly at college, Leinart's the better QB there on the field. So that alone kind of separates them. So, all right, well, moving on into the Final Four, I guess you will, since we had 8 to start. So we'll start down at the bottom of the bracket again. The 05 SC Trojans against the I guess you had the 14 UCLA Bruins against the 97 UCLA Bruins. So I'll let you go from there, and I'll say mine.
Yeah, so my bottom half of the bracket would have 2 UCLA powerhouses going at it, and top half have 2 USC powerhouses going at it.
At this point, I guess I'll just let you finish out. Just finish out at this point, then I'll finish.
Okay,
mine.
Sure. So we're guaranteed a UCLA-USC final, but yeah, that 2014 UCLA squad facing off against the 97 UCLA squad. This one was hard for me. Just the fact that 97 did beat some of the better NFL talent that we have seen in a very long time with Leaf and Manning and Williams. But I'm going to stick with my Cinderella, man. 2014 UCLA, I love what they did on defense, and I really like Brett Hundley in college. I really like what they did. And that Eric Kendricks-led defense, along with the very athletic Miles Jack, rattle the 97-led Cade McNown. In 2014, continues their streak of upsets. They make the finals, 2014 UCLA. And then on the top half, as good as the '08 USC team was, the '04 was just better. Simply put, '04 is one of the best teams we've ever seen. USC '04 version handles business, defeats the '08 USC team. So we have a finals of 2004 USC Trojans against a decade later 2014 UCLA led or UCLA Bruins team led by a bunch of NFL talent. Do you want me to go ahead and mention?
Yeah, pause
finish
there.
out?
Pause
Okay.
there, and then we'll get to that. So in my bottom of the bracket with 05 SC and 97 UCLA, I went with 05 SC. I just think that roster, it's it's hard because we always everything's based on wins and losses, and they didn't win the national championship. They lost to Texas, so it's hard to look past that. But just what they did throughout the year, the records they set, the offensive prowess they had, the defensive prowess they had, the unbelievable play they displayed. I just think that team is just too strong. And as much as I do like this 97 UCLA team, I put them past them into the championship. And I think you said it perfectly with the 04 SC and the 08 SC matchup up top. It's both great teams. The 04 team is just better. So essentially in the championship, I have the same team playing against each other, 04 and 05. Just one team won and one team didn't.
Sure. So 2004 USC, 2014 UCLA, going toe-to-toe, head-to-head in the championship. As much talent as the 2014 UCLA team had on that defense, and even on the offense, it was a great team. They beat some good teams that year. They beat an Arizona State team that year that was ranked. They beat them 62-27. They beat a ranked Arizona team 17-7. They did beat USC that year, 38-20. They handled business. I feel like the games that they lost. I mean, they lost to Utah by 2. They lost to Stanford toward the end of the year. Had they not dropped that Stanford game in the last week of the season, UCLA is probably that 2014 team is definitely considered a lot better than what they are. But man, as good as that 2014 UCLA defense was talent-wise, you're not stopping that 2004 USC team with Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, and all the talent they had. So I went ahead, and 2004 USC is hoisting that trophy, and they get to dance along to One Shining Moment.
Nice, yes. Love that. Mine, I wanted to give the win to 05, even though they didn't win it on the field, losing to Texas. But I wanted to just because I think their margin of victories were a little greater in that 05 season. They just did things that watching, you're like, this hasn't been done before. They had won 34 games straight, predicating to the year prior and even years before that. So something wanted me to give that just because there's all that pressure, that build. They had the same team essentially come back, and they were just doing it with a little more veracity. But I think I still have to go with 04 like you, just because they did finish it in resounding fashion, beating Oklahoma 55-19 down there at the Orange Bowl. Wire-to-wire winners. And so I think just the fact that they were able to finish and in the season as the best team in college football, as the number one team in college football, it's hard to have a team that doesn't even have a 1 next to their name, they have a 2 next to their name ahead of a true number 1. So got to go with 04 SC as well as our greatest LA college football team of all time.
Yeah, man, it's hard to argue that. Just the way Leinart was playing and Bush, and even though 05 Bush was stat-wise a lot better, and it's hard to argue anybody had a better season on the field than the 2005 Reggie Bush. But yeah, 2004 USC was just a better team, and man, to dominate the college football scene the way they did from week 1 all the way to the national championship at the end of the year, they did with the just absolute destruction of Oklahoma that year. Man, it was pretty wild to witness, and I'm glad that we were old enough to actually witness that team. We were both teenagers, and that was a crazy team, man. But yeah, 2004 USC definitely the best LA college football team that we've ever seen.
Yeah. I think it's unanimous with us, but a lot of good football here and a lot of good things to come, as we preluded to earlier. I think rebound year for both USC and UCLA, and I think we'll see a lot of improvement and hopefully future success down the line. But yeah, that was fun. Anything else to add, my friend?
No, that was fun. Definitely looking forward to 2019, though. I think UCLA and USC are as much as they struggle, and I know they're going through some turmoil. I actually ran a Twitter poll. I don't know, a few weeks ago now, asking the Twitterverse who had a brighter future in college football, USC or UCLA, and somewhat surprisingly, I won't say totally surprisingly, but UCLA got more votes. So.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the LA Twitterverse thinks that UCLA has a brighter future than USC, and I think a lot of that has to do with just what USC they've lost. It seems like a ton of talent to the transfer portal, and guys have decommitted and then gone elsewhere and stuff like that. But don't fret, USC fans. USC still is rich in history, and they have a great roster. I think I do like JT Daniels. But I also like what UCLA is doing with Chip Kelly, and I think once both of these teams get back on track, we're gonna have a lot of fun with this USC-UCLA rivalry here in the coming years.
I think so. Yeah, there's definitely something brewing, and
See what you did there.
yeah, right. You like that? So should be a lot of fun. But we're also excited about doing these brackets for some LA Pro football, some LA high school football. So it's going to be a 3-part segment, as I alluded to earlier in the show. But yeah, appreciate you guys listening. LA Football Podcast brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network. Make sure to check out sportsaldente.com. Like I said, the Coach and the Don is the promo code you want to use for 10% off of that. If you want to find us on Twitter, chat, hang out, talk sports, LA football, you can find the coach at CoachGraph34, or you can find me at Ryan Dyrud SAD, Ryan Dyrud SAD. Yeah, anything else, my friend?
That'll do it for me, man. Another great show, and looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.